This is Real Estate Rookie episode 219.
I would say if you haven't already, go write down your why. For me, it's my family and my freedom. And when things get tough, when things get stressful and overwhelming, because they definitely will, especially probably, early on, being able to lean back and really know your why and why you're doing everything and putting yourself through these, overwhelming or stressful situations will help you push on.
My name is Ashley Kerr, and I am here with my co-host, Tony Robinson.
And it should be episode 209.
It should be episode 219er, I think.
219er. Okay, there you go. That's probably the right way to say it. But either way, welcome to the Real Estate Rookie Podcast, where every week, twice a week, we bring you the inspiration, information, and motivation you need to kickstart your real estate investing journey. And I love getting in front of this mic every single time because we get to share some good stuff with you guys. Ash, let's get into our boring banter for today. What's new? What's going on?
Well, I'm just headed to Idaho tomorrow. Going to Coeur d'Alene to meet up with some real estate friends. So I'm excited about that. I haven't packed or prepared or done anything yet. I actually just changed my flight. So I actually leave 12 hours later so that I have more time to get ready.
Get your life in order.
Yeah. So, but that's about it for me. And just looking forward to the summer. It's finally getting really nice here in Buffalo, and we had a boat day yesterday. So yeah. What about you?
Yeah, it was good. We're really cool on the boat day. So Ash and I were supposed to record yesterday, and she texted me. She was like, "Hey, anywhere we can move that so I can get on the boat instead." I was like, "Yeah, of course, we'll make it happen." But
there will be one time where we do like a short rookie reply where I will be on the boat and recording
on the boat.
From there. That will happen.
I would love that. We got to make that happen. As long as I'm on the boat with you. I got to make a trip out to Buffalo at some point this summer. But no, things are good on my side too. You know what? I actually just had my first reel on Instagram pass 1 million views, so that was kind of cool.
Wow, that's awesome! Congratulations.
And it's always like the bad stuff that like goes kind of viral on social. It was a video about like these they were like actual like crackheads that booked our place. Like there was actual drugs like found left at the property, and they trashed the place. But anyway, we had a video like that showed about what the property looked like, and I guess people love hearing about the bad stuff happening at Airbnb.
Yeah.
So.
They like hearing bad stuff happen to other people.
Yeah. Not when I talk about how to analyze a property or the motivating stuff. It's like crackheads destroying an Airbnb and goes
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. What video I thought you were going to say is the one about like the bear coming onto your property where there's the garbage all over the porch and it got into the dust.
That one also went viral, but that was viral on TikTok. That one has like almost 3 million views right now. So this is our first one that hit 1 million on Instagram. So if you guys want to hear more about bears digging into our garbage and crackheads destroying our places, then follow me on Instagram at Tony J. Robinson. If you want to see more about boat days in Buffalo, follow Ashley at Wealth from Rentals, and you'll get a good mix of everything.
My content is so sporadic. It's like, okay, here today I took a boating reel and I turned it into why you should get life insurance on your business partner.
Because you never know what could happen on the boat.
Yeah, I got dumped off the boat, just like left off the back, and I was like, this is one of the risks you take when you get life insurance on your business partner. Is near death experience is always around the corner, so they can take over the business. But then I just added into my description about, what is getting life insurance on your business partner, why it's important. So you guys can check that out on my Instagram page if you want, at Wealth from Rentals. So, but today we are bringing on Hunter, who just got started in real estate. I think the coolest thing about this episode is he talks about how he took advantage of a college opportunity that you just signed up for, and he got paired with a mentor who ended up being such an awesome tool and I guess like motivator for him to actually get into real estate and investing himself.
Also, one of my favorite parts of this episode was the mindset segment. We brought that back for this episode, and Hunter's response to that was just really, I think it'll be really eye-opening for a lot of our listeners today. So make sure you guys take a listen for that as well. But overall, he had a not a setback, but he had an obstacle he had to overcome in college, where he had a kid right before he graduated, and I can obviously relate to that situation as well. And he talks about how that kind of framed and shaped his approach moving forward. So overall, just really good episode. Hunter is a great guy, shows a lot of really good information. So excited to share the story with you guys today.
Hunter, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to get started with telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in real estate?
Yeah, so I'm Hunter Lewis, 25-year-old investor from southeastern PA. Currently have 3 doors, and I'm in the process of selling my second one to 1031 exchange into a small multifamily property. So 3 doors, working on number 4. My journey started my sophomore year at Penn State Altoona. Similar to a lot of investors, started with me reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that's what kind of lit the flame inside of me. 1 year later, junior year, met my girlfriend Emily, and then 2 weeks before my senior year, found out that Emily was pregnant. So life kind of threw me a curveball, slapped me in the face, and forced me to get serious. April of 2019, we had my daughter. And real quick, it's actually a funny story. So Emily and I were living in 2 separate college apartments at the time. Obviously not ideal for a newborn. So we had to rent an Airbnb for the month of April leading up to me graduating at the beginning of May. So first month as a father, out of an Airbnb, which is funny. July of 2019, a couple months later, started my career with Sheets as an associate real estate site selector, so doing commercial real estate work for them. And then fast forward almost exactly a year later is when I closed on my first single-family rental. 6 months later, closed on my second in January of 2021, and then closed on my third in August of 2021.
Hunter, what made you take that position at Sheets? Sheets is a gas station, right? Like a big brand, like a Buc-ee's or something. Not as great as a Buc-ee's, I'll say that, but like
a Buc-ee's?
Big convenience store.
Never heard of that.
A Buc-ee's is like down in Texas, and I think they're like along the southeast, so it's like the best gas station you'll ever go to in your life. But
my favorite gas
Sheets,
station is Costco gas.
So what kind of got you to that position? Because you mentioned real estate as part of your job description. Can you maybe elaborate on that more?
Yeah, so after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad my sophomore year, I knew, real estate is everything I wanted to do in the path I wanted to go down. So pretty much just was trying to connect with people and put myself in a position to come out of school, hopefully with a job that was real estate related. Going in the senior year, find out Emily was pregnant. Before that, wasn't really taking life too seriously. Didn't really have any, set plans of what I wanted to do. Then that happened, and that forced me to get serious. And actually had Steve Sheets, who's one of the brothers who founded and helped start and grow the Sheets company and brand, as my mentor my senior year. And he hooked me up with the internal real estate department. And that's how I got my foot in the door and started with them coming out of Penn State.
Here's the question we always want to know is, how did you find your mentor?
So actually it was pretty easy from the student perspective. We just kind of filled out a form of what we were looking for in a mentor, and then the administration paired us based off what we answered. So I didn't really have to do too much to the legwork.
But you took advantage of an opportunity to pair with a mentor. So I think,
Yep.
So if you are in college and that is an opportunity that you have available to you, definitely take that resource that's offered to you.
Yeah, and I guess off that, speaking to being open and telling everyone and everybody about you wanting to be involved and get into real estate, because that's how I got paired with the mentor that was able to provide me and open up the doors for me to get into that position in the real estate department.
Hunter, one follow up on the mentorship piece, because obviously a lot of new investors, especially those of us that are younger in life, I think long for that quote unquote mentor, but that relationship looks different from person to person and mentor and mentee. So like what exactly did that relationship look like for you guys? Were you meeting like every week? Was it like every couple of months? And how long were the conversations? What kind of, challenges and things were you bringing to that person? Just give us some insights on how that relationship looked.
Yes, we tried to meet once a week, if not every other week. And really it was at first really just starting to build a personal relationship with him, and build that, friendly, open conversation with him before I really started to dig in and ask business related or, professional questions to help me advance in my career. So I think setting the groundwork of building a personal relationship first, and then, digging into the professional and business related questions was useful.
I think it's pretty cool that you guys met on a weekly basis. Like most folks that I know that have mentors, it's far less frequent than that. So and this was someone that seems like has like found a lot of success on their own, and those people are typically the busiest. So looks like you might have struck gold, Hunter, with your mentor.
I did. Steve is an amazing guy, super down to earth, and he's incredible with being able to build personal relationships and maintain them with how busy he is. One cool experience I actually got to do with him that sticks out. He was on Gary Vee's podcast, so he invited me along, and I got to fly up there with him and sit in on him doing a podcast with Gary Vee. So just being able to sit in with him and be exposed to experiences like that was just insane.
That is so cool. And I think that's probably something that, when you have scaled and you have grown as an investor yourself, that you're going to pay it forward and provide, somebody else that opportunity. I know the investor that I've worked for, he let me sit at the closing table before, and he had me as a signer on the bank account for he was doing this huge acquisition. And I sat there at the closing table, and I was the one that wrote these huge checks, signed my name on it, and it was just such a cool experience for me, because it really just showed me the whole process of, how he worked as an investor, and just me getting to actually write those physical checks made such an impact on me, because I had never even seen close to that amount of money before. So it definitely it would be cool for me to be able to do that for somebody someday, is to bring them on along with me and let them experience what I do day to day, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just getting exposure to as much as possible starting out before you jump in yourself is so beneficial in so many ways.
So when you did decide to take the leap and to get your first deal, what what made you decide, okay, now is the time? Did you have a lot of analysis paralysis? Was there some kind of hesitation, or were you like, today's the day, I'm going to go buy a deal?
I knew I wanted to jump in as soon as possible. Coming out of school, I had very little money in my bank account. So I took my first year working with Sheets to save up and cut expenses as much as possible. And quite honestly, COVID kind of played into that advantage, because we packed up and moved, or not moved, but came back home to stay with my parents during that time. So I was able to cut back on expenses, and finally was just ready to pull the trigger. So I just started taking action. I stopped holding myself back, and I just went online, went to citizensbank.com and figured out how to get pre-approved, and the snowball started rolling from there.
Can we talk a little bit more about the snowball? Because I think that's also the thing that a lot of new investors where they get stuck is like, maybe they can wrap their head around getting property number one, but the idea of doing properties number 2 and 3, especially in a short period of time, is where they get kind of stuck. So just to reiterate the timeline for folks, you got property number 1 in July of 2020. And then about 6 months later, you get property number 2. And then about 7 months later in August, you get property number 3, right? So you saved up the money for property number 1, COVID, moving in with your folks. But what about property number 2 and number 3? How did you fund and finance those ones?
Yeah, so property, once finally got in with my first one, that was kind of proof of concept, and kind of proved to myself along with my close family and friends that I actually could do this. 6 months later, I finally convinced my dad. I said, hey, Dad, listen, this is what I got in Altoona. And he was pretty involved in the process to buying the first one. I showed him the numbers. I showed him what I planned on renting that one out and how much I wanted the cash flow on that one, and convinced him to put up the down payment and closing costs for the second property. So I partnered up with my dad on the second one. We put 20% down, and he actually exercised $25,000 of his employee stock for the down payment and closing cost. And that's how I financed that second one.
Something I want to point out is that you said on that first deal that was proof of concept to yourself, your friends, and your family. And I love that you phrase it that way, because that's exactly what it was for us in our business as well. When we started, we knocked out 4 short-term rentals in the span of like 6 months maybe. And like as those properties started to perform, that was proof of concept to us and other people in our circle that the short-term rentals are a good asset class and that we know how to set them up, manage them, and run them on a daily basis. And as you start to communicate what you're doing in the world of real estate investing, you're going to start gaining interest from other people who you may not have even known were, involved in real estate. So for you, Hunter, it was your dad, but for the rookies that are listening, maybe it's like the person that you do like yoga with on Tuesday mornings, or maybe it's the person that when you're at like the daycare and you guys sitting there watching your kids play, maybe it's that person. Like, you never know who in your circle already has an idea of investing in real estate, but they don't have the time, desire, or ability to do it themselves. And if you can show proof of concept, now you've opened yourself up to potential partners to help you continue to scale.
So Hunter, what would be your advice for somebody who is just starting out and maybe in a similar situation to you where they have these resources at their work or have a mentor? What are some like tips and advice you can say is what are the things they should really focus on and maximizing having these advantages to them? For example, like, is it, the network of that other investor that's mentoring you, or that you get from your job? When I first started out, I built like a really great relationship with a loan officer. I was doing loans for this investor. And so when it was time for me to do a loan, we had a great relationship and he knew I was responsive. And so it went really smooth getting them to give me a loan because of that. So is there any advice or things that you took away from the opportunity you had with your mentor and your job?
And I would kind of also shout out to my real estate agent that I found for that first deal. She was really crucial in, like you touched on, the network. So digging into the network and the relationship she has already created and whether or not I was going to have access to them was a big thing. The lender, she had a contact at Citizens Bank who I was already getting pre-approved with that she hooked me up with. We used her closing company. We used her inspector. All these people that are really crucial and big time players in purchasing a property, they either can make your life really easy or really hard. And fortunately, she had that network and those people there that made my life a lot easier buying that first property.
So when we move on to our next segment, we're going to go into like an actual like deep dive of your deal. But before we do that, I want to talk about, so you mentioned before that you had a child very young. So what is that part of your why? What has driven you to kind of keep going and to build and scale this portfolio?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Having Tegan I think I had just turned 22. Emily was 20. Had no money coming out of school, and being the man in the family, I obviously had to put the team on my back in a way. With Emily still having 2 years left at school, so I knew financially it's going to be on me for some quite time. So that was kind of letting me understand that this is now much bigger than me, and it's up to me to provide for my family. That's definitely driven me in many ways.
We talked about this on another episode as well. It was someone that we just recently interviewed. I'll have to try and go back and figure out who it was. Maybe we can throw it in the show notes. But they talked about how a lot of people use their family as an excuse instead of as motivation to really like bust their butt and do the work that needs to be done. And I've shared on the podcast many times. I was 16 years old. My son was born. I was a junior, just started my junior year of high school. And there are a lot of folks who are in similar situations that use the fact they had kids young as an excuse as to why they can't achieve great things instead of a motivation to achieve those great things. So for all of you that are listening, there may be things, maybe you didn't have a kid as a teenager or in your early 20s, but maybe there's something else in your life that you feel is an excuse that's holding you back from really going forward as a real estate investor. But I challenge you to think of ways to reframe that obstacle as a motivating factor as opposed to an obstacle for you. So really appreciate you sharing your story, Hunter, because I'm sure it'll inspire some of the folks that are listening right now.
And another thing we like to talk about too, is we might as well bring this up, is what about, how is Emily on board with you getting started into real estate investing?
She's been great. She really has. She's never once really even questioned me. She's always just been an open ear, and ready to jump along for the ride. And actually, for the third deal, we split the down payment and closing costs for that one. So we technically, I guess, are partnered up on that third property. So she was definitely a big role and a lot of help throughout this journey so far.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear, because I think that's sometimes a struggle for people, is getting your significant other or even just somebody on board with you to do it together. So that's awesome that you've had that support, and that definitely helps a lot. Do you have any advice for somebody that is maybe trying to get their significant other on board?
Just give them Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
That was the book that lit the flame in me, and I gave it to her. That was actually after I bought the first one and was really pushing to continue to scale and grow. She read that one, and I think she was like, wow. Was completely on board after that.
Yeah, we always say Rich Dad Poor Dad is like the gateway drug for real estate investing, right? It's like you read that first, and then it kind of, or the gateway drug, or maybe it's like the Matrix, right? It's like the red pill or the blue pill. It's like when you finally take the right pill, like opens your eyes up to what's really going on.
Yep.
But I want to go back to the partnerships piece, Hunter, because you said you took down the first one on your own. You saved up some money from your job, moving in with your parents. The second one, you got your parents involved, and the last one, it was with you and Emily. So can you talk us through how you structured those partnerships? So maybe first with your dad, like what did the structure of that partnership look like?
Yeah, so being that it's been close family members so far, I haven't got anything too crazy. So none of the properties are in LLCs. With my dad, it's kind of just a written agreement that we are going to split equity. So we bought the house for $80,000, and not to get too deep into this one yet, but we bought it for $80,000 with 20% down. It was a $16,000 down payment. So the equity split is 50-50 after the $16,000. So whatever the equity is minus $16,000, and then divide that 50-50 would be the split. And then we just split cash flow 50-50. But this early on in my investing journey, I have not been spending any of the cash flow. I've just been letting it all accumulate in these separate bank accounts per property, trying to keep my eye on the prize of saving up and continuing to reinvest in the business.
So what you described, Hunter, is like a capital recapture. So on the equity piece, and we've done this in some of our partnerships as well, is that whatever equity is available before we split that, the person that put up the initial capital has to get repaid first. So in your situation, it was a $16,000 down payment that your dad put up. And like, say you guys go to sell that property or refinance or any kind of like capital event, that $16,000 would get paid back to your dad first. And say there's like whatever, $10,000 left over, then your dad would get an additional $5,000, you would get an additional $5,000. And that's a really common, I think, lever to pull inside of partnerships to try and keep things balanced. Now, here's what I will say, right? Because I know I get this question a lot. Ash, I'm sure you get this question a lot as well. Is like, Tony, Ashley, what is the best way to structure a real estate partnership? And I will tell you, Ashley will tell you, there was no one size fits all solution for any partnership. It's all going to depend on the unique desires, wants, abilities, time availability of each one of those partners. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that A, you're not breaking any laws, and B, that both partners are happy. As long as you can check those two boxes, you can structure the partnership however you want to. If you want to say that partner A has to give partner B a lavish birthday gift every year as part of this partnership agreement, then you can do that, right? Like there is no right or wrong answer for structuring a partnership.
Let's kind of go, I would like to go into just break down a deal for you, Hunter, and kind of see how you made a deal happen. Is there one in particular that you'd like to go over?
Sure. Here we can go over the second one with my dad.
Yeah, cool. So I'm just going to do some rapid fire questions. And then if you just want to spitball them, and then we can kind of go through just the whole story of it.
Cool.
So where is this property located?
Altoona, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And what is the strategy you're doing with it?
Well, originally was a long-term hold rental property, but with the crazy appreciation we've seen over the last couple of years, I'm currently listing it on the market to try to 1031 exchange into a small multifamily.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll definitely have to talk more about that. And what is the purchase price of the property?
$80,000.
Okay, and did you put any rehab into it, and how much was that?
New carpet and some paint, so very minimal, probably like $1,500 all in.
Okay, and how did you finance the property?
So me and my dad partnered up. He put up the down payment and closing costs, which all in was about $23,000 with 20% down. So we just used a local mortgage lender in the area.
And how did you find the deal?
With my agent on the MLS.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you just want to kind of go into that story and maybe just start off as to maybe how your agent sent it to you and then go from there.
Yeah, so finally got my dad on board, and he was coming up to Altoona because my hometown's about 3.5 hours away from there. So So he was coming up. We were actually going to put some new flooring in the first property that I had bought, and I knew he was already on board, so I had scheduled with my agent 4 or 5 houses that weekend that we were going to go tour.
Wait, did your dad know, or is this like a surprise? You're like, hey, Dad, I know you're here for this, but let's go check this other thing out.
I threw him a bone. I didn't give him all the details until he showed up. I wanted to see his reaction. So he showed up. Yeah, we got the floor done. I told him, I said, hey, before you leave, we got to go look at some houses first. And I think he was kind of like, oh, crap. He was being serious about this. So we went and looked at him, and I think it was the last house of the day we actually went and looked at. And I could just tell walking through it, my dad liked it, I liked it, and it was in a good area near the Penn State Altoona campus. And I said, this is the one we're going to pull the trigger on. So I think the end of the weekend I ended up driving back home with my dad, and we put in an offer, and on the way back we had already heard back that they accepted. So they had already did 2 price cuts. So we came in at $80,000 and they accepted our offer right away.
Can I ask one follow-up question, Hunter? So for a lot of new investors, when they see multiple price reductions, they get scared. Because I think the initial response is, oh, there must be something wrong with this property because it's been sitting, no one's made an offer, and now the sellers are getting desperate. Did you have any of those thoughts as you were looking at this property? And if so, how were you able to push past those?
Yeah, it was always sort of a yellow flag. I never want to look at that as a red flag. Just kind of proceed with caution and try to figure out, what might people be shying away from this house for. There was, a couple issues that looked like they used to have a little bit of water in the basement. They dry locked the walls and installed some French drains around the house. And we haven't had any issues since. So just proceeding with caution and trying to figure out what may be deterring other people and trying to solve those problems. And if the deal still makes sense, I would still push forward, and that's what we did.
Ashley, what about you? How do you feel about looking for price reductions in your market?
Well, actually, my flip right now is in a price reduction. So if anyone wants to buy my flip in Seattle, we have reduced the price. Yeah. So I mean, when I see a price reduction, and if it's sat on the market for a long time, but this was 3 months ago. And for like the past year before that, during that time period, the house wasn't selling within like a week, especially 2 weeks. And they reduced the price. It was like an automatic, okay, there's something wrong with that. But those are the houses to go after because it might not even be anything wrong with that. Or maybe it fell out of contract because, it was something with the buyer where they couldn't get financing, things like that. So I think those are definitely great opportunities looking for properties with price reduction, especially if it's like every 2 weeks they're dropping the price. And, that usually shows that they have some kind of reasoning that they want to get out of it. Like they're motivated sellers. So yeah, I think that's a great thing to look for.
Yeah. I mean, my thoughts on the price reduction are that it could just be that they overpriced the property to begin with. Right. It doesn't even necessarily mean that something's wrong with the property. Right. It just means that the sellers were asking for more than what it was worth. And like, I love seeing price reductions, especially on a property that I offered on before that they rejected the offer, because now I can go back and say, hey, you just reduced the price. Can we get a little bit closer? And we've actually closed up deals that way. And for me, like any property that we buy, we're going to do an inspection on. I'm typically going to have my crew walk it during escrow to make sure that it fits within our rehab budget. And like, as long as I can do those two things, I'm going to uncover most of what I need to uncover so that, I'm still protecting myself as a buyer. So I know a lot of you listening right now, maybe you're shying away from the price reductions. But if the numbers still make sense, like Hunter said, and that the deal will still be cash flow positive, then don't be afraid to pull the trigger, right? The only caveat is if you're in a flood zone in Shreveport, Louisiana, then do not buy the deal because there's a good chance you might end up losing money on it. So
I think there's actually going to be quite a few price reductions for property, like especially now where maybe people listed a month ago as interest rates, spiked up. And now they're not getting what, so if you purchase a property, and flipped it like I did, and we listed it probably $100,000 less than what we had thought as we were going into the flip because the market was already changing. And then we had to do one price reduction since then. So I think there's definitely going to be a lot of price reductions, especially for people who thought the market wasn't going to come down at all and priced it super high because 3 months ago, that's what you could get. And now they're going to have to try and keep up because just the amount of people that can afford houses now have decreased because with the interest rates, their monthly payment for a mortgage is going to drastically change than if they got the mortgage at 3% compared to 6%. So I think you might see a lot of price reductions now from people that have maybe listed their property a month ago.
Cool. Sorry, I didn't mean to take us down that rabbit hole there. But hopefully it's good information, man. But I just thought it was a really interesting point you made. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that.
So what else happened with the property? We were doing the deal dive. Yeah. So what else happened with the property? So you purchased it, you're going through rehab.
Yeah, so this comes back to having a really good agent, especially in your early days. She already had tenants lined up. So we put in the new carpet, and within 6 days after closing, we had the tenants in there, and we're already starting to collect rent. So, and that was my first time and my dad's first time being an actual landlord. The first property I was still living at the time as an owner-occupant. So that was, having those tenants already lined up from the agent, that was crucial in getting my dad over the hump and giving him the confidence to pull the trigger. So they were pretty good tenants. That's, the first couple months were my first couple months of being a landlord and figuring out how to compromise, if you will, on certain things. And then we rented it out for another year and a half up until this past May, actually. And he was a Marine, our one tenant, and he got new orders to move somewhere else. So on short notice, he was out. And I asked my agent, I said, hey, what do you think we could get for this property now? And she said, probably between 130 and 150. And that was a lot more than I was expecting, especially after a year and a half. So I was like, holy crap, let me go talk to my dad and see what do we want to do. And so we decided to go the route of listing it. So it's currently on the market. And speaking of price reductions, full disclosure, it's been on the market for, I think, 12 days now. The first 10 days we left it at 140, and we actually had to reduce the price to 130. So we went in a little bit higher, not anticipating the previous market flows over the last month with interest rate hikes.
Yeah, and that's hard to do when the market has changed so drastically, so quickly too, is that, you're looking at comps that sold 2 weeks ago, a month ago, and they're not even relevant anymore because the people that bought that got, maybe 3.5% interest or 4%. And now it's just like getting close to double.
Right. I think since those comps that we were using, it's been, I think, 1.5 points higher already. And it's a completely different market once you start making jumps like that.
And you always get that thing going in the back of your mind, like, oh, geez, if I would just would have got that rehab done like a month earlier.
Right.
They hit like the top of the market.
Totally.
Yeah, I think we had to wait like an extra week for the carpet. And I was like,
yeah,
if only we could have got them in a week earlier.
But I think that's just like, it's kind of good to go through that process, and it kind of makes you check yourself, because if we both would have listed our properties at the top of the market and made tons of money, it's like, oh, okay, here's the excitement, the momentum. And then we go and do the next one, and it's like, whoa, the market has drastically changed. So I think it's almost good to, I'm trying to be optimistic here. Obviously, it would be way better to sell for a lot more, but lesson learned that, you have to watch the market. And just because you start flipping a property, at month 1, by month 6, it doesn't mean that the property is going to sell for whatever you analyzed it at month 1. So just a lesson learned, especially when we're, going through interest rate hikes right now, is if you are flipping, be aware of what could be happening down the road too.
Can we talk a little bit about the property management piece, Hunter? You touched on it a little bit, but you said this is your first time managing a property, your dad's first time managing a property. What made you guys decide to self-manage versus hiring it out? And B, what were some of maybe the tough lessons you learned along the way that you can share with the listeners?
Self-manage. The reason I went that route to start off is I wanted to get the experience under my belt of being a landlord so I could somewhat understand it. And quite honestly, shout out to you guys. I got the Rent Ready code for $1 by using the BiggerPockets code.
We love Rent Ready.
Yeah, whenever that time was. So that's the system I use. So I got that set up and was all in using that. And I thought it was really, really simple and easy to use that to help screen the tenants and get them in there. So it's been successful using that so far.
It's good. And are you solely doing the management, or is your dad doing part of it too, both of you? Or
So mostly me, I kind of fill him in on things, but I'm the one that's completely hands on, and the point man for all the communication. Just another way we kind of structured that partnership. So it's been me dealing with the tenants one-on-one. Some issues I've had, I'm just trying to find a compromise. Like they wanted to put a security door on, and I just instead bought them a Simply Safe security system because I knew that would benefit me as well as benefiting them. So, just trying to continue to solve the problems that real estate will throw you, and just compromise with your tenants to create that win-win.
That's such a great advice. And we had a guest on for property management, Karen, who kind of talked about that too, is, where do you draw that fine line of, pleasing the tenants, but also making it for the property owner feasible. And I think right there was just a great example of, okay, they wanted this, which, if the security door is expensive, but let's find something that will actually be long-term beneficial to both of you and provide a little bit more value than just replacing a door too.
Can we continue like on the property management piece before we jump out? Like, I know you're managing, you have multiple properties now. So are you self-managing all of them? And then are they all kind of in your backyard, or are some of them a little bit further away? And if so, how are you managing remotely?
Yeah, so the third property we bought was in southeastern PA. So the first two are still up in Altoona. So I have some experience of having to self-manage from being 3.5 hours away, still using Rent Ready for both of them, and still using that same agent to rely on her and her network. So I'm actually just signed a rental agreement with her yesterday to start tenant screening for property number 1 because I'm having some tenant turnover. So just ties back into building those relationships and building the network, especially early on, so you can lean on those people in your time of need, especially once you move away, and things might get a little tough. But in the future, I think I will switch to property management companies. Just at this point, I'm trying to maximize the cash flow and returns so I can keep the snowball rolling and put that back into more properties.
Well, that's awesome, Hunter. And congratulations on those properties and taking advantage of being able to self-manage. I think it's kind of scary sometimes to do self-manage a property that's far away, but what do? Are you going in and fixing the toilet? Are you making the repairs yourself, or are you calling people anyways to go and do it? So it's not like you need to be around. What does your maintenance model kind of look like?
So I usually just pick up the phone and I'll either Google or use other connections in the area with local plumbers or local like handymen that can help and get to the property in times of need. And some of the relationships I built from being at Penn State Altoona, some local friends in the area, their family-owned investment properties. So I've relied on him to go over and check out some properties from time to time. So it just seems like as I'm starting to get more and more experience, I'm always on the phone making phone calls as a real estate investor. So
I think one really good thing to do if you are an investor starting out, or even if you are experienced and you haven't done this yet, is make a contractor list, a vendor list, and keep track of all of those vendors and contractors that you have used, or maybe you have called and gotten quotes from them, or somebody referred them. You may not even need them now, but just to keep that list so that when you are in a pinch and you need that electrician, you can go through, okay, here's 3 right here I can call and get bids on. And instead of having to Google it every time, because I used to have to do that too all the time, and finally made that list, and it's definitely been super beneficial. And then I can just pass that list off onto, somebody that's working with me and say, here's the, the people that I use and the people that I call too.
Actually, I'm glad you added that last point, because that's where we're at in our business right now, is that, as we're adding people to our team, like I had some vendors saved in my phone. Sarah had some saved in her phone. Omid had some saved in his phone. And as we're trying to onboard this new person, we're all like airdropping contacts to each other so that it's all in one spot. So we use Monday.com now. Monday's cool because it's kind of like it has some CRM contact management type functionality. So now we're building out our vendor database inside of Monday.com. That way, no, as the team expands, there's one like, golden source of information that everyone can go to figure out, okay, if we need to call pest control in Joshua Tree, who do we go to? If we need to call a window repair guy in the Smoky Mountains, who do we go to? And it's all one centralized location. So for the rookies that are listening, obviously the most important thing is to get started. But if you can take some of these little tidbits and really lay yourself a strong foundation when you have 1 or 2 properties, when you get to 10 or 20 properties, it's going to be so much smoother and so much easier if you've kind of laid that strong foundation.
That's exactly what we did too. It's in monday.com, and the same, just the contacts of all the vendors and we did it by trade. So there's a column for each trade and then list it out. But yeah. So if you guys need some property or project management resource, you can check out monday.com, or there's Asana, all these different kind of project management resources and tools that you can use to track your business. And they're not a sponsor of the podcast at all, but we would love them to be if they want to. But it's great when you're getting started is building your systems and processes now, because or else you'll be like me and Tony, and you will be scrambling to get them into place when you are building your teams. Well, Hunter, I want to take us to our mindset segment. Is there anything, any kind of expectation you had jumping into real estate and then realize that the reality of it is that it's not the same?
Yeah, I would say for me, the biggest thing, especially right now, I feel like I'm kind of in a plateau area, would be the patience aspect. Once it was kind of like bang, 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 got the first 3 deals, and now I'm kind of in a phase of trying to continue to grow capital. So I think starting out and moving quickly for myself in those early days, the mindset of thinking the snowball is going to continue to move that fast for me was a mindset shift. I had to kind of acquire more patience, if you will.
I think that's a really interesting point to bring up, Hunter, because a lot of people who are entrepreneurial, I think by nature, are also somewhat impatient. And I always go back to this quote that I heard from, I think it was Jeff Bezos. And he talked about part of the reason Amazon was so successful was because they had patient capital. And the way he phrased it was like, if we can spend $1 million and we don't need to see a return for 10 years, we're going to be able to beat the person that needs to see a return in 10 months. And that was like the ethos of a lot of the ways that Amazon made decisions. Now, obviously, Amazon's one of the most well-funded companies on the planet. So all of us can't have that same time horizon. But I think the point of patience as a real estate investor, there is some truth to that. Because if you can be a little bit more selective, a little bit more patient with your deal making, then you can make sure you're always going to get good deals. So I just love that point, because I know I struggled with patience a lot, especially in my earlier 20s, where like I wanted the success now, and I wanted to be a millionaire now, and I wanted the cash flow now, and I want all these things now. But as I've gotten older and I've matured, I've realized that there is a sense of patience that really does help you become a better business person.
Yeah, and I think you had a great point there of staying patient so you don't make the wrong decisions on deals. That's a great point, and it's something that, instead of just going out and trying to acquire as many doors as fast as possible just so you can say you have X amount of doors, staying patient and making sure you're still buying good, strong, cash flowing properties that fit your investment criteria.
So I want to take us to our rookie Rockstar, but before we do, I have just a couple more questions for you, Hunter. Not necessarily related to your deals, but a lot of people who are listening still have day jobs just like you do. 2 questions I want to ask you. First, how have you been able to manage, or what, I guess, tips, advice do you have for people that are looking to invest in real estate while managing family, while managing a job? What tips do you have for them to manage that time? And then the second, do you feel you've become a better real estate investor because of the work you do in your day job?
So one thing I've implemented that's really helped me, and I think might be overlooked by, people that are, early on, is meditation. Meditation is 100%, been one of the biggest game changers for me to implement into. I try to do it every day. I don't get around to it every day, but a few times a week, being able to meditate for 10, 20, 30 minutes to decompress and detach from everything going on. It just helps me come back to everything more focused and more ready to attack the issues at hand. To the question on my day job, helping my real estate investing, 100%. being able to identify and investigate and analyze properties for sheets has definitely given me the skill set from a networking communication standpoint all the way to being able to look at the numbers and pencil things out. So it's definitely helped go hand in hand throughout my journey thus far.
Yeah, just one more follow up, and we can go on to the next segment. But I think there are so many people that are very eager to leave their day jobs, not realizing that sometimes there are benefits to working that job that will help you become a real estate investor. First, and I think the most obvious thing is like you're more bankable when you have a job, right? It's much easier to get approved for a loan when you have a steady W-2 income. Like I remember the first loan that I got for my investment property, they were able to approve me on a job offer letter, right? Like I had gotten a new job offer where my salary had increased pretty significantly, and all they needed was the offer letter. Like I didn't even have the job yet, and they were able to approve me on that. So there are definitely some benefits, but there are also other kind of soft and more like technical skills you pick up in your day job that will allow you to become a better real estate investor. In my day job, I focused on leading people, building systems, managing processes. And believe it or not, a lot of real estate investing is leading people, building systems, managing processes. And a lot of what I learned in my W-2 job, I still apply in my real estate investing business. And I really do believe that's what's helped fuel a lot of the growth that we've seen. So for those of you that are listening, just if you can find a way to use your day job as a resource and as a tool to help you become a better real estate investor, then getting up every morning and going to work becomes just a little bit easier.
Hunter, I want to take us to our rookie request line. So this is where anybody can call in and leave us a voicemail at 1-888-5-ROOKIE, and we may play your question on the show for a guest to answer. So today's question is from Jake Apollo.
Hey guys, how's it going? This is Jake Apollo. I'm in Missoula, Montana. Sorry for the background noise. I'm out on my run for the day. I just started listening to your podcast, and I'm in a project right now with my dad. I'm going in about 150K, 200K, and the house can be worth between $900,000 and $1 million, all equity. And I'm wondering, moving forward in real estate, what the best, maybe not the most crazy profit margin, but kind of the safest and entry level step I should take that would allow me to kind of get into the market without overextending myself or putting myself, jumping into water too deep. That would kind of allow me to get my footing in the real estate market, whether it's rentals or buying and flipping, whatever it would be. I appreciate it. Thank you guys. Bye.
Yeah, I would say from my experience, the easiest way and the smoothest way for me to get into real estate investing was the owner-occupant way. So putting 3 to 5% down, living in for 12 months, and then renting it out. That was a very bite-sized step for me to get into real estate investing. And then partnering with my dad, going in, holding it as a long-term play, but then recognizing that, given the market changes, there's other exit strategies and having other ways to get out of the deal if you need to. So, yeah, those were two of the easiest ways for me starting out.
So I want to take us to our next segment, which is the rookie exam. Hunter, I know you just graduated from college a few years ago, but we're gonna take you back. This is that final that you didn't study enough for. Maybe you had to pull an all-nighter for. But these are 3 questions that we want to ask every investor that comes onto the show. So question number 1 is, what's one actionable thing rookies should do after listening to this episode?
I would say, if you haven't already, go write down your why. For me, it's my family and my freedom. And when things get tough, when things get stressful and overwhelming, because they definitely will, especially probably, early on, being able to lean back and really know your why and why you're doing everything and putting yourself through these, overwhelming or stressful situations will help you push on.
The next question is, what is one tool, software, app, or system that you use in your business?
Rent Ready has definitely been super crucial for me from the self-managing perspective.
Yeah. So if you guys are self-managing and you haven't checked out a property management software, definitely do your research and look at them. There has become so many options, even just in the, God, how long have I been investing? 8 years, maybe property managing 8 years. But there's so many options out there from when I first started. So it makes your life so much easier.
Awesome. So last question for you, Hunter. Where do you see yourself being in 5 years?
In 5 years, I would like to be close to my goal of $10,000 a month in net cash flow. So long way to go, but that's where I would like to be and see myself in 5 years.
You talked about it a little bit already, Hunter, but it does snowball, right? And like as you start to accumulate more deals, it becomes a little bit easier to get the next one, and the cash flow builds on top of the cash flow. And as you build a presence for yourself in these markets, you start to get more deal flow, and it all just kind of compounds on top of each other, man. So for you, just a few years removed from college, I can totally see you far surpassing that goal over the next 5 years, man. And we'll be excited to get you back on this show, on the Real Estate Podcast, once you're crushing it like that, and we can hear how well you've done.
Well, I appreciate that. It's that means a lot coming from you guys. This is like a dream come true. I've been listening to you guys since day one, so this is awesome.
Well, we're so happy to have you.
Always. Well, before we close out, Hunter, I just want to shout out this week's Rookie Rockstar. So if you guys would like to get featured on the Real Estate Rookie Podcast, drop a note in Minor Ashley's DMs, get active on the Real Estate Rookie Facebook group. We're in the forums. But today's Rookie Rockstar is Alexandra Nicole. And Alexandra said, just closed on our second property in 8 months. Last January, when I started reading about real estate investing, I never, ever thought I could get one, let alone two properties that quickly. So property one was purchased for $130,000 with 20% down. ARV was $170,000. Renovations were about $5,000, and they were able to BRRRR this property, get back the down payment, which they used for property two. And Alexandra bought property two for about $125,000. Spent $4,000 on the rehab and was worth $165,000. And the plan is to be able to get the down payment back for property number two, which they'll then roll into property number three. So Alexandra, congratulations to you on the amazing success.
Hunter, can you let everyone know where they can find out some more information about you and possibly reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at property_profits. It's my real estate account. And then you can email me at lewisrentalgroup@gmail.com.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. And I hope you took a ton of knowledge from Hunter. And Hunter, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and sharing with us your story and lots of great advice. I'm Ashley at Wealth from Rentals, and he's Tony at Tony J. Robinson on Instagram. And we will be back on Saturday with a rookie reply.